With lockdown, I'll always tap into girlfriends. I'll be texting people all over the world and just checking in, saying, how you doing? Are you okay? These relationships really mean something to me. That's, to me, what makes the world go round.
Here with the fearless and fabulous Eva Galambos, who I have known throughout my entire fashion career. But what makes her a trailblazer is she has actually brought global fashion to Australia. So if you are following what's going on the runways, what the global celebrities are wearing, but you don't know where to find it, normally what happens is people look at all of these global online portals to bring the fashion into Australia. Eva not only has the fashion in Australia in her Parlour X studio in Sydney's prestigious Paddington, she also has the most amazing online shopping experience. Welcome, Eva.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Tory. I feel as if I'm casually having a conversation and catch up with my girlfriend, so I feel really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. That sets my heart on fire, Eva. And because the last time, in between lockdowns in Sydney, Australia, I saw you at Fashion Week and we were talking about how you started Parlour X, but also the power of the partnerships and the relationships that you have built with global brands over the years. And I'd love to really dig deep today and understand how you foster those relationships, but how you got to the top of your game. So let's kick it off. Where did the idea for Parlour X come from?
I have always had a background history vocationally in the arts, and I wanted to create a beautiful retail space that resembled an art gallery. So I wanted to work with incredible fashion in the same way that dealers and museums and galleries work with art. And I wanted to present the most beautiful pieces as almost one-offs and as works of art, because at the end of the day, art is a form of expression, and so too is fashion. So for me, I was trying to present in a gallery-style context fashion.
Incredible. So your first store, I remember, Glenmore Road, Paddington. How did it feel to open the doors, and what were the first designers that you secured to bring into Australia exclusively? And most importantly, how did you foster those relationships?
In terms of the relationships, when I was in my early 20s, I lived in London for many years. And at that time, I worked in fashion and I worked my way up, and I definitely at the time made many interesting friendships and relationships, which I never really understood at that time was going to serve me so much in such a perfect way later on down the track. But basically, I worked for the Armani Group, I worked for Prada, I worked for the Nicole Farian French Connection Group, which at that time, at that stage in London, was like the bomb. So I worked for some pretty fantastic places, and I made some amazing connections and relationships. And I think in terms of fostering and nurturing relationships, I'm a salesperson, and I love being a salesperson. And part of being a salesperson is all about relationships and relationship building. And I think for me, it comes very naturally. It doesn't feel forced or rehearsed. It feels like a very natural connection and relationship. So fostering these relationships and maintaining them over the years. I'm even the same now, like with lockdown, I'll always tap into girlfriends. I'll be texting people all over the world and just checking in, saying, how you doing? Are you okay? These relationships really mean something to me. That's, to me, what makes the world go round. So I held on to a lot of those relationships. And when I returned back to Australia and then had the vision and decision to open up Parlour X, I tapped into all of those relationships, and so many different people were working for so many different new and exciting places. So securing those brands was might seem really tricky, but for me at the time wasn't as tricky. It was just reconnecting with old friends in fantastic new ways.
Oh, I love it. And what were the first brands that you brought to Australia that really delivered impact? Because let's face it, I know I launched Zara, back in the early 2000s, and we didn't have the high street, let alone did we have access to international fashion. What were the brands that delivered impact for you?
I wanted to present very unique designs that felt almost art-like. And for me, Vivienne Westwood at that time was one of the most exciting collections, and who she was as a human being and what she represented. I mean, she pioneered sustainability before anybody else did. She was there, having political slogan messaging within the context of her collections right from the very beginning. And for me, that was very important. So ideologically, she resonated. Her style, which was so feminine but avant-garde and pushing the envelope, and the accentuated body shapes. I mean, I love that. She's a proud woman, and she celebrates women, and her fashion and her clothes celebrates women of all shapes and sizes and color and creed. She's a remarkable human being. So she was the very first person I contacted and the very first relationship that I fostered and nurtured.
Oh, I love this. And I'm going to let you in on a little story. I actually bought some Vivienne Westwood from your first store, and I launched Ilamasca, which was the makeup brand that her son created in Australia. And I remember hopping off a plane at like 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, getting to the hotel, putting on the red lippy because she loved a lippy, putting on the outfit and walking in. And he's like, that's my mum's design. And it's like, here's this girl from Australia buying global brands with impact, but working with global businesses. And I think that's definitely the edge that you had on everyone out here, because you saw a trend, but you weren't afraid to back bold designers. So now you and I have also gone on this journey where we both had kids while we were building a global business. We're both single mamas for quite some time before we met our soulmates and expanded our families and came into alignment with our destiny. My daughter traveled the world with me, and I know that you have this incredible passion to show your children and your girls that journey as well. What have you learned from having them on that ride with you? And in return, what have they learned?
For my children, whether or not they decide to cultivate a vocational interest in fashion or not, I'd love them still to always have a creative desire and pursuit, and to really understand why creativity is very important in one's everyday life. As a child, I wasn't really interested in looking at the 6 o'clock news. I wasn't really interested in reading the paper, but I did very much have huge interest in the political messaging and messaging behind suffering that came through art and through fashion, and understanding people's stories. So for me, that context really resonated, and that helped me form my judgments. And so I'm trying to instill in my children the same level of judgment making, and wanting them to develop a deeper conceptual understanding of life and what goes on around us, and for those that are privileged and those that aren't, and to really have a very 360-degree view of the world, and to ask those questions, why are they sad? And why are they angry? And what happened in their past that has caused this? And, to relate to it, and to talk about it, and to be open about it. So opening my children's eyes and bringing them into the context of my work is really important to me, because what better form of education than they can through personal experience? And who better to ask the questions than me? Because, I'm not the tic-tac-toe mum. I'm the mum that wants to be asked some of the difficult questions that maybe other people shy away from, because I'm happy to tackle them head on. I harness a great sense of fulfillment and satisfaction from being able to have these conversations with them.
Oh, this is simply brilliant. What would you say would be the most powerful conversation that you've had with your children recently?
Maybe not so recently, but on about 3 years ago, on one of our trips to Paris, it was a really difficult trip, because there was a lot going on globally, and there are a lot of homeless people, and way, way, way more homeless people on the streets than ever before, and anything that they've seen before. And even though they've been coming to Paris with me since they were both born, the level and increase from year to year of the homeless people that they would see on the streets and living on the streets really elevated 3 years ago. So they started, because I would talk about it as well, or if somebody was on the street asking for money, they would want to give their money and their pocket money, and I would want to give whatever change or whatever I had on me at the time. I mean, we don't really carry that much money anymore, which is kind of difficult. But, and we would talk about that. Why, mummy, why are they homeless? What are their circumstances? And unraveling and discussing all the different possibilities. It could be people coming from another country that are from persecution. It could be that simply they lost their job and then they lost their home and then they entered into a vicious cycle of, not being able to have showers and maintain themselves. So how are they supposed to go then for jobs, and how are they, and just really discussing the different countries and the different policies in the different countries, and talking about how incredibly lucky we are in Australia. Just really discussing and understanding the differences and really making them appreciate what they have in life. My parents came to Australia when they were very little, but as immigrants. And so we keep that conversation alive all the time, because I want them to understand that, I've been able to provide for my children a really nice life, and I really need them to understand that, also easy come, easy goes. If anything happens in their future and they need to work really hard to build a life for themselves and build back anything for themselves, I want them to have ambition and drive and a moral compass that's really important for them to be able to pave the way for their futures.
How do you navigate and how do you know what's just going to look sensational on someone? Because it's the biggest question that I have when I'm shopping online, but also when you go in store, you don't want to feel like, oh my God, I've just put on a few kilos, or I'm trying to hide this, I'm hiding that. Your staff and your team just seem to know what looks good on you in a heartbeat. Is that something learnt or earned?
Yes, both. It's a combination of both. So we do extensive training. So we have morning meetings, we talk about fits, we talk about the fits and shapes. So you have to appreciate, so when we're buying the collection in the very first place, so obviously buying over the last 2 years has been on Zoom, but we, when I'm going into the showrooms in Paris and Milan, and even the showrooms via Zoom, we have fit models. We can see the way items are being dressed and worn. The suppliers also provide you thereafter with explanations as well. So we have quite a bit of background knowledge, and obviously the years of experience of seeing many, many, many different people's body shapes and sizes fitting into various different garments, and understanding what people's quirks and irks are about their own bodies. I mean, some people don't like their elbows, some people don't like their knees. Like, everybody has their little foible that they do and don't love about their body. And, and you need to really honor that, and you need to really listen. And I think being a really good listener is key. And I think my girls and my team are really good listeners. And yes, that does come into the training manual and handbook. But it also does, as I said, the other thing is we would never put a sales member of the team in front of a client that didn't have extensive training. You don't get a job at Parlour X and then bang, you're put on the floor. It doesn't quite work that way. There's many months of extensive behind the scenes training that goes into each member of the team before they have contact with clients. And so learning and understanding what the client is wanting, listening, hearing, and knowing the stock back to front, and knowing how to make different assessments and judgment calls about, their fashion style. So sometimes it's not even just about their body shape, but it's also assessing, are they bohemian? Are they very tailored? And, do they dress for work more, or do they dress for play more? And it's really like a Rolodex in your brain, assessing so many different factors, and that comes with extensive training. And fortunately for, all the girls in my team, they're naturals at it anyway. So yes, they're trained to be that good, but then if they didn't have natural abilities, they couldn't take it to the level that they do. So they definitely have those natural abilities as well. So it's a winning combination.
This is a winning combination, and I want to point out and I want to congratulate you, because we are talking the best of the best customer service in Australia here, because I don't know any other retailer, and I've worked with so many around the world. And I remember when we were looking after Ken Downing and we were launching Neiman Marcus online, and of course he was at all the same couture shows that you were. He goes, "Who is Eva? I need to meet this Eva. I hear she is the best of the best." And just listening to you right now about how much training and how much knowledge you give your team, I don't know any other retail experience in Australia that is at that benchmark, which is the same as Paris or Milan or, London or New York, with all of those beautiful big fashion brands and houses. But what you're doing is you're pulling it all together. You're delivering us the best of the best, but you're doing it by actually understanding the customer journey, but most importantly, understanding the product so that year on year you have this growth. So you're now up to 20 years, which is just congratulations. I mean, that's just incredible, Eva. Like it's incredible. What has been the biggest challenge in business for you along the highway of life?
For me, and maybe it's a stage of life and age and where I'm at as well, the reality check of looking at my industry for what it is and recognizing and acknowledging the change in directions that it's going in, and really trying to resonate with myself how that's made me feel about what I do, and question my industry and question the purpose and what have you. And I think I had a little roadblock a few years ago where, I was looking at the changes, and in that moment, I couldn't really see a light at the end of the tunnel. It felt as if our industry wasn't changing for the better, and I was feeling a bit dismayed and disillusioned. Since then, I've pulled myself out of that vortex, and especially since COVID, there have been a lot of positive changes in our industry. I have developed a new perspective about the future of the industry and the future of Parlour X and my place in it. And that now feels incredibly comfortable, and it's a new narrative. And so I guess I had to mourn the loss of the old narrative and the way we used to function and operate. And I've actually welcomed this new narrative with open arms. And there's a huge light at the end of the tunnel that feels really strong and powerful. And I feel really excited about where the future holds. And I do think that COVID, whilst has brought devastating effects to so many in the world, it's also brought positive change in terms of perspective and introspective and, external perspective. And I think that we're all going to be operating a lot better moving forward. I hope so. I know I'm going to be.
100%. And I love this point about evolution and the fact that you've had time to really think and be agile as an entrepreneur and a business leader. So when you're really talking about sharpening the direction of Parlour X, what is it? What can we expect more of from Eva and the team?
The digital side of the business has been incredibly exciting for all of us who have always placed greater importance on our bricks and mortar business. I mean, we're in this incredible space. We're in a 200-year-old, church that's the oldest church in the region, and we're really proud of our location. It's a beautifully designed space. We love coming to work every day and being in this space. And I think because it's such that side of the business and the idea behind the church being such an important presence and aspect of the business, digital always felt very secondary to us. Obviously because we want face-to-face contact and service is important to us and what have you as well. And because so many brands we stock from, Comme des Garçons, we have so many conceptual brands and arty brands that, people don't want to buy online. They definitely want to see up close in person. It's like art. You want to see a lot of that in person as well. So, we've always placed such importance on our bricks and mortar side of the business, and being in lockdown for 4 months and entirely shifting to a 100% online business has been absolutely fascinating. I mean, it's given us a focus that we never would have had otherwise. It still would have always been split, and we still probably would have always placed preference to bricks and mortar. But, we've been given this opportunity to 100% focus on digital. And I think it's invigorated all of us, and we've all learnt and we've all grown, and my entire team and I have completely upskilled. And I think from upskilling, there's such an incredible sense of achievement and purpose and fulfillment. And I think we're all feeling that now. So when reopening happens, which is imminent and soon and only a few weeks away, I think it's going to be really, really exciting to watch how we manage both with equal importance. I think that's going to be really, and I'm quite excited to see how we're going to manage, really contextually making them both so important. And to be honest, it's always been a dream of mine for them both to have equal weight and be of equal importance. So I'm actually quite excited to see how that all manifests and comes about,
This is so exciting. And for those of you listening to the audio version, because we'll do the YouTube version as well, Eva has this big smile on her face, and it's like the whole world is opening up, so many different opportunities. And I love the fact that you've decided to give digital equal weighting to the in-store experience. And I have one last question for you. Do you ship overseas?
Absolutely, we do, because the whole thing about Parlour X is that when we buy with myself and my team, one of the most important factors that comes into our buy is buying styles from the collections that very few other retailers buy, with very, very minimal overlap. So that if you are that type of individual that doesn't necessarily want to buy what everybody else has, but you love craftsmanship and you love beautiful brands and you love the collections, but you just want something that's a bit different, you can come to us and find that point of difference. So what happens is people internationally, they go searching and they're trying to find aspects of the collection that they've either seen on runway or they've seen people wear, and they're going to all the majors and all the bigger players, and they all are stocking very similar styles to one another. And then they'll come and they'll find us, and they'll realize that we have unique pieces that's really, really tricky and difficult to find anywhere else. So we pride ourselves on having quite a unique buy and quite a unique edit. So absolutely, we ship to everybody.
That is incredible. So you're servicing the world. So I could be in New York, but I could still have Parlour X, or I could be in the Greek islands, in Santorini or Mykonos, and in comes the package. Oh, this is simply brilliant.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing the power of your story. Congratulations on 20 years. But most importantly, what I've really learned from this is the power of customer service, the power of loyalty, but also waking up with a happy heart, because you're working in alignment with what sets your heart on fire. So thank you so much, Eva. This has just been simply powerful, brilliant insight into a woman that leads and is a pioneer globally in the fashion industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tory. This has been great. I've really enjoyed this experience, and I'm loving your podcast, and I'm loving what you're doing. So thank you too.
Oh, you are most welcome.